Golly, it's good to be home.
Welcome home.
Really? Thank you all for coming out today for my return. I know, you came for the refreshments. But I am the path through which you will travel to those refreshments. So being home is delightful, and being in this space is always energizing and activating to me, so thank you for joining me in that. Let's begin this process. Points of power, something we've been saying for a while now, these 5 statements. Let me tell you about why this really works for me. The science of mind has had an incredible influence on my life. Collectively, I think it's the most powerful philosophy on the planet. And I use it every day. But what I have discovered, and what I learned from the one that created the science of mind, Dr. Holmes, is that it's open at the top. That's what he said, so that it can be expanded on. Now, it's not open at the bottom. We're not going to change the basic tenets of who we are and what we believe, and that's that the presence of the divine is present everywhere, always, which means that that divine presence dwells at the point of us, and that everything about us is that divine presence, and that creative force that created the universe is the same force we use to create our lives. These basic tenets do not change. The question is, how do you apply them? How do you use them in your life? And in reading The Science of Mind and the many writings of Dr. Holmes, it's very clear to me that what you think is what creates your life. Therefore, be mindful of what you think. But a lot of the ideas about how to live your life, how to set standards for your behavior and activity in mind, is not so clearly stated in the teachings. And that the open at the top idea is, how do we apply it? So I'm always kind of looking at other people's opinions and seeing how they line up with the science of mind. And if they do line up, I'm going to look and see how I can apply them to my life. And that's what I've done with these points of power, this thing that we now recite every Sunday and we use in our lives. We recite them on Sunday, but how many of you actually say these words every day, these 5 statements? Okay, we've got a bunch of people that do that. I want to suggest to the rest of you that you do, include them in your daily spiritual practice. Barbara and I do every morning when we do it, when I'm on the road, unless I'm up at 3 a.m. for a flight, which did actually happen last week. I'm normally saying them as well, and I will continue saying them because I want to really embody these 5 ideas. I believe they're in perfect alignment with the science of mind, and they will help us live our lives. How many of you have seen that by saying them and using them and thinking about them on a regular basis, that they have influenced your behavior? Oh, just about the same hands. Okay, good. Someone told Barbara that they were kicking her deer egg. You know what that is. That it was really causing her to, I'm not even sure it was, but causing her to really reflect on pretty much everything that she was doing on a daily basis, which I think is the point of this. Because knowing that you are the presence of the divine and acting like it, Charlie Shepherd will tell you, are not always the same thing. But our task then is to live a life that lives at that high level of divine presence, and to know that with everything that we do. So we have these new 5 ideas, and I want to reflect on them today with you and think about what they could mean and how they could impact our lives. So we begin. Well, let's look at the 5 of them together. Here they are. I always pay attention. I always tell the truth and tell it quickly. I always ask for what I want when I want it. I always take total responsibility for my experience. I always keep my agreements. You'll notice every one of those starts with the words, I always. Now, there are some people that say, avoid using absolutes in your way of speaking into the world. Don't say the words always or never, because that's not true. Well, do I always do these things? No. But if I don't set that standard, if I don't call myself to always do it, then I have a casual relationship with these, and I would say, sometimes I do this. How's that going to work? We don't want that. We want to be in that sense that this is important to us and that our intention is to always do it. Do we always do it? No, we don't. But we'll do it more if we claim that we always do it. We've got a better shot at making it actually part of the fabric of our personalities and the way we are in the world if we claim that we always do it. So I'm going to stick with this idea that I always do these things. Even though I haven't achieved that with an absolute sense in my life, it is my intention to do that. So they say always. So let's go look at these one at a time. I always pay attention. What am I paying attention to? Well, the science of mind tells us that we create our life by the thoughts that we have. But frankly, we don't always pay attention to all of the thoughts that we have. We have thousands of thoughts every day. Most of them are the same thoughts we had the day before. But that doesn't matter. The fact is that that's what we're running our lives on. That's what is actually being impressed upon the law and being reflected back into our lives as form, as the experiences that we have every day. That's the place where we can really see what's going on. We don't always get it when we're thinking it, but we can see what's happening in our lives. So I'm calling all of us, including myself, to always pay attention to what's happening in my life. That will tell me what I'm thinking about. Because if something shows up in a way that I don't like it, that I'm not pleased with it, that I wish that wasn't there, I still have to say I created that. And the only way I'm going to use that to change the way I'm creating things in my life is to pay attention to it, get it, and live in a different way by thinking a different thought. That's why we call this thing new thought. We need a new thought, not the one we've been having, because it's giving us the stuff we don't want. So create a new thought that takes you to a different place, that creates a different outcome in your life. It always works. That's an absolute. What you think is what you get in your life. Now, some people will tell you that's not true. They'll tell you, well, I have this thought that this thing is in my life, but it's not. You see, it's not there. Well, what's the last thought you just had there? That it's not there, so that's what you get. So don't do that. If you're going to have a thought, be absolutely certain that that's what you want, and that's what you're going to get, and then get it. And you will, every single time. We were sitting, we had our wonderful work day yesterday, and we were sitting having lunch, and I heard one of the people that was sitting there talking to someone else, and he said, "This stuff really works." I was surprised how quickly it happened. You know, and that was out of Monday night class, where a thought, an idea, a clear direction, and boom, there it was in his life. Wow. That's not the exception. That's how it works. So the only way that you can adjust and maneuver through your life to get the better life that you want is by paying attention. You must do that first, before all other things. It will be so revealing, because you will not be falling into judgment and playing those kinds of games. You'll actually be paying attention and making adjustments to your life. That's the first one. Then we've got, I always tell the truth and tell it quickly. The truth is not about your perceptions, your preferences, your ideas on how people should do things around you, or your judgments of how they're wrong. That's not truth. In fact, to correct this, we've got to make a slight adjustment. Yeah, capital T, truth. What is the truth? I believe the principles that science of mind teaches are the highest truth there are. That the divine presence dwells in, through, and as all things, without exception. And what does that mean? That's the thing you want to know to tell the truth about. That's the thing you want to reflect on and create in your life as the basic understanding of what it is. And when you do that, judgment just doesn't work the way it used to. You can't blame things and people and circumstances, because God's everywhere. God's in the midst of it all. And if we live from that perception and we say that to ourselves quickly, then we remember the truth and we live in that truth, and our life begins to work. It's so I don't know, it's so easy to fall into that trap of being in judgment of someone. It's alluring. That's the word I was looking for. It's alluring. Because I want them to be wrong so I can be right. But every time I play that game, I'm not playing in truth. I can't tell the truth about that by making someone else wrong. What I can do is I can understand that the presence of the divine dwells in them as much as it does in me. And if they're seeing life differently, they're entitled to do that. My job is to see the presence of the divine everywhere and live from that. And as May McCarthy says in the book that we're reading in class, The Path to Wealth, that doesn't make you a doormat. That doesn't mean that people get to walk over you in any way, shape, or form. But they get to be who they are. And if you're wasting your energy, or I'm wasting my energy on making them wrong, I'm not living in this ethic. I'm not living in truth. I want to live in the truth. So I've got to see even the stuff in life I don't like. is the presence of the divine, and me being upset about it means I'm upset with myself because I'm the same thing that that is. And how far does that get me? Well, that closes doors, that stops the flow, that does all the things I don't want to do. So could it really be that valuable for me to blame somebody or find fault in somebody because my life is going to be now more difficult? Am I willing to pay that price to have somebody be wrong? No, I'm not. And we're all at that choice point in our lives. We can decide if we want to speak truth, speak in truth principles and believe those principles that we speak, and to live from that and to do it right away. Don't wait. Do it right away. And in so doing, have the pleasant experience of not being against anything. And that's something else we love around here, is the idea of knowing that nothing is against us. And of course you can point to things in the world where it appears that things are against somebody, but that's not your business. What your business is for your life to be in that divine flow. And the way to do that, the key to do that, is to live in truth, to apply it to every circumstance in your life. As it says, I always tell the truth. I always speak from that divine principle. I always live my life with this understanding, and the outcome I get, guess what? I like it. So I'm going to keep doing that. I encourage you to do it too. Will you do it at the first moment? Probably not. Not every time anyway. But as soon as you see that you're not, remember what is true. You may have spoken a fact. You may have talked about something that it seems so clearly present in your life. At that moment, you are at choice. Can you live in that pain and that grumbling and that challenging situation, or can you step out of it and go, I'm free. The presence of the divine dwells there too, but I'm going to focus on what I want. Oh, I want. I think that might take us to the next one. I always ask for what I want, when I want it. Now, that may sound a little selfish, a little self-centered. Some people claim that's the problem with the science of mind. All that me. Okay. That's where life happens, at the point of me. Life happens at the point of you. Is there a better place to focus? Here's the thing about wanting. Wanting is not the end-all experience of life. It's a starting point. But you gotta have it. Otherwise, you're not gonna get anything, because unexpressed desires are unrealized desires. If you can't know that you want something in your life, then you can't have it. Anybody want to stay there? I don't. I like having things in my life. I like being around people that are beautiful and wonderful and delightful as the presence of the divine. So I'm going to make sure that happens because I want it. I'm going to make sure that my life flows the way I want it to. And that takes nothing away from anybody else. In fact, that enhances everyone's life when I live the life of my desires. So I'm inviting you to state your desires. And it says, when I want it, at that moment, yes. Now, in the science of mind, we learn that we don't stay in the wanting, that we go into the having, and that we express ourselves as having these things. And if you're taking the class with us on Monday nights, you'll know that that's the work that Mae McCarthy suggests that we do, that we state our gratitude as though we already have it. That's great. But you can't state a gratitude for these things that you're claiming you have in your life unless you know that you want them. So we do the work. And the work begins by understanding and embracing and embodying our desires. Not as something that is lacking in our lives, but as the logical next step for us. The next thing that we're to do. Isn't that a great idea? And if we're clear and we're understanding who we are, then our desires do not conflict with anyone else's. Our desires align with life. Now, you can get down into the particulars of it. I want a relationship with this particular person. I want to make money from this particular arrangement. I want to live in this particular house, and I think we get a little lost in the particulars when we do that. The desire is something greater and cleaner than that. It's that I want to live in a place that is beautiful and safe and that I feel comfortable in. I want to be in a relationship with someone that is as respectful and loving and present for me as I am for them. And on and on and on. When we do that, when we're clear about what we want, when we refine the idea of what we want, we get it. We get it. Because we're giving that idea of desire, moving it into a state of gratitude, and allowing this thing called the law, the universe, whatever name you want to give it, to reflect it back to us in a way that delights in us. That's the work. Yay. And then we live that life that we say that we want to live. Because we're willing to have a desire and to express it into life and to live with it from a place of gratitude. I always take total responsibility for my experience. This is sometimes challenging, at least for me, because there are times I just want to say they wouldn't let me, or something outside of me had something to do with it. That's another one of those little alluring things that we just kind of wired for. But the truth is that when we take total responsibility for our lives, when we have that clear understanding within ourselves that no matter what the circumstances look like, no matter what's going on, we did that. Not blaming, actually taking responsibility for it means that we can respond to it. We can turn it into what we want. It may not be right now just the way we want it, but it will be if we take responsibility and respond to it by having that thought that shifts it. Y'all have heard this story 1,000 times, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it was one of those profound moments in my life. It was when I was invited to be a facilitator at the Crystal Cathedral. In the heyday of Robert Schuller and the Crystal Cathedral, I was invited to come there, and there was a symposium about youth violence. And I was one of those there working on it. We had a speaker, a man from Brooklyn, New York, who did Saturday Sunday school. And I think he was with the Church of Christ, I don't remember exactly, but he was into working with kids, and they collected thousands of kids in buses on Saturday and took them into this big warehouse space and did this. It was like game show energy with these kids, and he was amazing. And he got up, and this was at a time where there had been riots in several American cities. And he said, we've had these riots because the churches haven't done what they can do. And I was in the back room, and I went, yay! And I started clapping, and I was the only one. All the rest of them, the ministers and the priests and the rabbis and the Islamic clerics all sat there and said, But he was right. And here's why he was right. If you take responsibility for the way things are, you can change it. If somebody else did it, you can't do a thing. So take responsibility even for the stuff you don't like in your life, and you can change it, and you can change it quickly. This is a gift. This is not a burden. And I have seen it so many times in my life when I wanted to point out at that person or those people and say they did it. And I said, no, this is mine. This is mine. And what happens to me when I do that isn't a burden of, oh, look how I've messed up my life. It's a, okay, what do we want to do? What do we want to have? Where am I going here? And I get to choose. Many of you know that there's a good possibility come next February, I will no longer be president of Centers for Spiritual Living. There's a ballot initiative that's going to happen here in October that says there is no president in our organization. Huh. What do I do? Well, yeah, I had my moments. Wondering how that works. There's going to be work for me. And it happens to be the stuff I really like to do. But the thing is, it's not a full-time job anymore. Golly, that means I'm going to be home more. Yay! How bad could that be? That's wonderful. And it's going to give me an opportunity to explore some other things that I've really wanted to do. And I've actually said these words. I'll do all this when I'm not president anymore. And then life shows up and lets me be not president anymore sooner than I expected. Woohoo! It's a good thing. It's a happy thing. It's really working for me. Now I could have gone, they took my job away, they messed everything up. Oh, these people, blah, 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 blah. And what would that get me? I'll be digging a hole that I couldn't know how to get out of. I don't want to play that game. I want to be happy. I want to do cool stuff in my life. I want to touch lives and make a difference. And if it takes not being president, I'm ready. I always take responsibility for my life. Total responsibility, absolutely. And the last one, I always keep my agreements. I've had this ethic in my life forever. I think I learned it from a guy when I was in my 20s, and I went to a symposium in Houston, Texas. It was called time management, and that was such a big lie. It wasn't about time management, it was about life management. And one of the things that he taught me was keep your agreements. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And there's a caveat to it. If you find out that it's not working for you to do that, don't live in this great burden of having to do it because you said you would. Change your agreement. But to change your agreement, you have to do it in a way that it doesn't impose burdens on other people because you said you were going to do it. So if you're going to change that, you have to work out how that changes so that everything still works out. Don't just walk away from it. An easy example right in this community would be if you say you're going to be a greeter, if you say you're going to play a bowl, if you say you're going to work with the kids, if you're going to be serving in the kitchen, do it. Yeah, but I got it this morning. I really didn't feel that good. So I'll just call and tell them I'm not coming. Well, that would be an attempt to change your agreement, but then who's going to do what you said you were going to do? So think about it. And the deal is that on those mornings where you think, I don't really want to get up and go to the center this morning, is the perfect time for you to be here. Because there's something here for you that you are resisting. You know most of this stuff we resist. This doesn't come naturally. But when we hear it and we accept it, these things that we're learning here, when we come here and we share with one another and we interact with one another and we lift one another up, we feel better. So on those mornings, rather than not showing up or attempting to call someone and just tell them you're not going to show up, come, be here. And this is just one little simple example. It's happening in our lives all the time. If we're not as good as our agreements, how good are we? If we say we're going to do something and then we don't do it, what does that put on our psyche? What does that put into our way of being in the world? It questions our reliability, our trustworthiness, and most of that is really not with the people that we're working with. That comes and goes quickly. But what is it saying? What are we saying to ourselves? If I said I would do it and then I don't. Whatever it is, wherever it is. This is a powerful tool that we can all use in a meaningful way by simply keeping our agreements. Life's so much easier. We may have to do more, but life truly is easier when we do what we said we were going to do. And it keeps us in integrity. And there is no higher value in my life than being integrous with what I think and what I say and what I do. And most of that comes out as agreements. There are agreements happening all the time. In fact, I wish that we would teach our children about agreements early on. I remember when Barbara's son, Matthew, was in his teens, I introduced him to this idea of agreements. And there were times when I would say to him, is it okay that you do such and such? And he would go, no. And you know what? That was a better answer than saying yes and not doing it. Because that gave me the ability to negotiate with him in a way that worked for both of us. These are sacred trusts, these agreements in our lives. And it's better to hear a no and know that that's where somebody stands than to hear a yes and then not get it. So I invite you to always keep your agreements. And to one more time, look at these ideas. Apply them to your lives. Find out if it doesn't make your life work better if you hold yourself to these standards. It may be some extra work in the beginning. It may get your butt kicked for a little while. But if you apply them, you will have a better life, I guarantee it. So these will continue to be part of what we talk about here. And we'll continue to find ways to do this and to express them into our lives so that our lives get to be as clear and beautiful and wonderful as we desire. I believe in you. I know who you are. You're the presence of God right here, right now, in your life. And you're creating your life exactly the way you're thinking. I invite you to use these things so that we can see it and use it even more fully in our lives. I love you very much. Thank you.